Picture this, you've spent your entire life saving, investing in what everyone agrees is the safest asset on earth, gold. It's tangible, it's timeless, it's the ultimate store of value. Then one morning you wake up to discover it's worthless. All of it, your life savings, gone. Sounds like a nightmare, right? Well, for the people of Spain in the 16th and 17th centuries, this nightmare became a reality. This is the incredible true story of how a flood of treasure from the New World didn't make Spain the richest empire forever, but instead crashed its economy and taught the world a harsh lesson about money that we still grapple with today. How could so much gold and silver, the very symbols of wealth, lead to economic ruin? Let's dive in. Before the 1500s, Europe was in a kind of great bullion famine. Gold and silver were incredibly scarce. Coins were small, trade was often done by barter, and economies were stagnant. Wealth was measured in land and titles, not necessarily in glittering coins. Then, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, and everything changed. He wasn't just looking for a new trade route, he was looking for gold. And while he didn't find the golden cities he dreamed of, those who followed him, the conquistadors, certainly did. When Hernan Cortes and his small band of soldiers arrived in the Aztec Empire, they were stunned. They saw temples adorned with gold, nobles wearing intricate silver jewelry, and a treasury that defied belief. Similarly, when Francisco Pizarro encountered the Inca Empire in Peru, he found a civilization that used gold and silver for decoration, religious artifacts, and everyday objects. To the Inca, these metals were beautiful and sacred, but they didn't have the same concept of monetary value as the Europeans. Pizarro famously captured the Inca emperor Atahualpa and demanded a ransom that would fill a large room once with gold and twice with silver. The Inca people delivered, but it wasn't enough to save their leader. For Spain, this was just the beginning. Suddenly, a torrent of gold and silver began flowing from the Americas back to Spain. Massive treasure fleets called flotas braved pirates and storms to haul legendary quantities of wealth across the Atlantic. We're talking about tons and tons of precious metals. The Potosi silver mine in modern-day Bolivia alone was so productive that the phrase, "as rich as Pozos," became common slang for unimaginable wealth. You would think this would make Spain the most prosperous, powerful, and stable nation on earth, right? Well, it did for a little while, but it also planted the seeds of its own destruction. This is where we get to the core of the problem, a phenomenon economists now call the price revolution. Imagine your town has only 100 apples and $100. Each apple might cost $1. Now, what if a magical tree suddenly produced 10,000 more dollars, but the number of apples stayed the same? Suddenly, there's way more money chasing the same amount of goods. The price of an apple would skyrocket. This is exactly what happened in Spain, but on a national scale. The Spanish crown, flush with silver, started spending like there was no tomorrow. They financed massive armies, fought expensive wars all over Europe, and built extravagant palaces. They didn't need to develop their local industries, their farming, their textile manufacturing, their crafts, because they could just buy whatever they needed from other countries like England, France, and the Netherlands. Why make a wool coat in Spain when you can easily buy a better, cheaper one from abroad with your silver coins? This had a devastating effect on the Spanish people. As more and more silver coins flooded the market, the value of each individual coin plummeted. This is inflation. The price of everyday goods, bread, wine, oil, clothing, went through the roof. A farmer who sold his wheat for a set price found that the money he earned could buy less and less each year. A craftsman couldn't compete with cheaper foreign imports, so his business failed. The wages of the common person couldn't keep up with the soaring cost of living. People were starving in the streets, surrounded by a sea of silver. The wealth was a mirage. It was concentrated at the very top, with the monarchy and the aristocracy, who mostly spent it outside of Spain. The nobles and the crown were rich, but the country of Spain itself was becoming poorer and poorer. Its fields lay fallow, its workshops were silent. The very thing that was supposed to make them rich gold and silver was actually hollowing out their entire economy. They had the money, but they had stopped making asterisk things. They had stopped creating real value. This is a classic case of what is known as the resource curse or Dutch disease, where a country with a sudden natural resource boom neglects all other sectors of its economy, leading to long-term ruin. So, when did gold and silver become worthless? It wasn't a single overnight event, but a slow, creeping economic catastrophe that unfolded over decades. For the average Spaniard, their money became effectively worthless because it couldn't buy them the necessities of life. Their savings, their wages, the value of their work, it all evaporated in a fog of inflation. The government tried to fix it by doing the worst possible thing. They debased the currency. They started mixing cheaper metals like copper into their silver coins, creating something called vellon. They hoped people wouldn't notice. But people always notice. This just made the inflation worse and destroyed public trust in the money completely. By the mid-17th century, Spain, the country that had once controlled a global empire powered by American treasure, was bankrupt, not once, but multiple times. The constant wars had drained the treasury. The flow of silver from the Americas began to slow down, and the domestic economy was a shell of its former self. The great Spanish Empire began its long, slow decline. The gold and silver hadn't been a blessing. They had been a curse. What's the lesson here? It's a powerful one that's just as relevant today. True wealth isn't just about accumulating money or a specific asset, whether it's gold, dollars, or cryptocurrency. True, sustainable wealth for a nation comes from productivity, from innovation, industry, agriculture, and the skills of its people. Money is just a tool, a means of exchange. If you have all the money in the world but produce nothing of value, that money will eventually become worthless. The story of 16th century Spain is a stark reminder that the fundamentals of economics don't change. Printing money, or in their case digging it out of the ground without a corresponding increase in the production of real goods and services, always leads to the same outcome: inflation that punishes savers and the poor, and ultimately economic collapse. So, the next time you think about what makes something truly valuable, remember the Spanish Empire drowning in a sea of silver yet poorer than ever? Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this slice of history as fascinating as I do. It really changes how you look at money. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next exploration into the past. Let me know in the comments what you think. Until next time.